through vulnerability and honesty, cutting the bullshit, like, let's get real. Like, how are you doing? What's going on? Like, yes, it became a passion. I love to pass it on.
Green lights and blue skies are on their way. Yeah, they're on their way.
Welcome everybody to Crosstalk. We have a special guest today. My friend Blake is here, and Blake is going to tell us all about why he's sitting in our chair today. So I'm really proud, really happy to welcome my friend Blake to Crosstalk. Hi Blake.
Hi Corey. Hi. Thank you.
Thanks for being here. Appreciate your sharing and coming and being with us and spending some time with our Crosstalk listeners.
Yeah, it's an honor to get asked and to show up and to be able to show up. My name is Blake Porter. I'm from Adams, New York, which is about an hour south of Canada. Grateful to be from upstate New York. I'm honored to be here, first of all. Just this is really beautiful what you're doing, and I'm really glad to be a part of it and share my story, and that I get, you know, to share it, because however long ago I wouldn't have been able to do this. Just doing something like this would have been terrifying. I couldn't even form a sentence back in the day. So yeah, I grew up in upstate New York, beautiful family, didn't want for anything. I had an older sister, you know, my family, my parents, you know, really good people. They got divorced when I was 12. That's not why I became a drug addict and alcoholic. I truly believe I was born with this disease, and just from a very young age felt uncomfortable and discontent and just different than other people. I had everything I could want. I had great friends. I was a good athlete. I had things going, and I just felt different.
At what age did you recognize there was a difference between you and the other kids that you were hanging with?
That's a great question. I honestly, it was like this. Like I had this existential thing happened to me when I was like 11 or 12, where it's crazy. Like, it was around that age, and that's right when I picked up my first drink. But I looked out the window one night, and it was pitch black, and I had this dread of it felt like I got hit with consciousness of what is going on, and it just became fear of just being a human being. I just remember this very vividly. That's when I feel like I got terrified of just being a human being. When I was 12 years old, and ran downstairs, and I asked my mom, I was like, "Mom, what's going on?" And she's like, "What do you mean?" I'm like, "Just like this, us talking. What is this?" And she's like, "I have no idea." She goes, "I think about that all the time." And I was just right around that time is when I picked up a drink. It was so weird. So
when you say right around that time you picked up a drink, you weren't in the house with your mom in the kitchen. You were with friends, and it became available through some...
So my sister was, 4 years older than me, and her friends were always drinking. And my family, I come from a town where people drink. That's what people do. So there's alcohol all the time. I don't remember the first time I drank, but it was around that same time when I was having these huge feelings of discomfort. I remember being obsessed immediately. I took that drink, and just felt like I could breathe, and felt that was my solution. And I became obsessed immediately.
It was like fear of the unknown. You think?
I don't know what it was. I think it's just the question of how did we get here? They say there's 100 forms of fear. Mine was one. What the fuck is going on?
There's an expression that I've heard in fellowship meetings where people describe themselves as feeling like they were wearing a black tuxedo but brown shoes, to describe the fact that they didn't feel like they were fit in. That's not exactly what you're talking about.
No.
You're talking about something different, something where everything just seemed like it didn't make any sense to you.
Yeah, it was the bigger picture of how did we get on this planet? What is this unit? Those kind of questions. That at 12 years old, before that happened, I was playing basketball in my room. There's a little hoop on your door, and I was just shooting it, and then I look out the window, and I'm like, what the? That was my fear, just this existence.
Did you talk to anybody about this besides your mom?
No, I drank and did drugs, and that honestly, that curbed the fear, and it just propelled me to not think about to escape. That's all I wanted to do all the time.
And so at 12-ish,
11 or 12, started drinking, and I drank alcoholically immediately. I was drinking and driving at 12 years old. I stole
Well,
it.
that, in upstate New York, that's probably normal.
Par for the course, yeah. Like a couple of my friends we would drink, and like I said, but my sister was older, and I wanted to be cool, and you know I was really good at drinking.
Were you good at driving?
Yeah, I didn't have any consequences that night, at least.
Where did you drive to?
I don't know who left me home alone, but my dad was out of town, you know, didn't live where we lived, and my sister and mom were out of town. I took her car and just drove around town, and two of my buddies were in the car, and I was drunk. I was like, all right, we gotta get back home, and I was like trying to turn around, and I put my blinker on, and I'm like, am I good? Am I good? My buddy's like, yeah, you're good. You got the wrong blinker on, but you're good, because I like had the right blinker and I was going left. No accident. Got home safe and
Wow.
Kept it moving.
A precocious 12-year-old.
Yeah.
All your friends were doing the same kind of thing? You hung out with people who were also drinking?
Yeah.
Any drugs at this time, or just mainly alcohol?
So at 12 years old, I thought the bad kids were smoking pot. Like, that's what the bad kids were doing. Meanwhile, I'm drinking and driving, thinking I'm a good kid. From like 12 to 16, it was just alcohol. Probably 4 or 5 days a week.
And then when you get to 16, left turn, right turn? I don't mean with a blinker.
I don't know if it was a 180 or what kind of turn it was. It was a veer. My buddy was living at college, got into pot at that time. I went to visit him and we smoked, and it was cool. It was a nice vibe. Bob Marley was playing the whole deal. It took me like 15 to 20 times to get high. I don't know if it's a tolerance thing, but like I kept trying. And once I finally got high, I was like, holy shit, alcohol is great, but this is what I like.
How old were you when you started doing more than pot?
16. I was on the basketball team, and I was like B's, C's student, you know, just showing up, and all I wanted to do was escape reality, and that weed and the music and the, you know, hanging with your friends, going into the woods, like that was doing the trick. And then 3 months later, I'm sniffing coke, taking pills, taking mushrooms, and then going to basketball practice the next day.
Any consequences?
Not really. I mean, I think that's where I learned how to like develop this persona, or the defects of like being able to lie and just get by, and so people wouldn't really ask questions. Like, people were like, I was getting in a little bit of trouble, but nothing like legally, or my mom was like on to me a little bit, but it was her and I in the house. My dad was gone, and I did just enough to get by.
Sister's out of the house at this point.
Yep, sister's in college, University of Buffalo, a party out there too.
You visited your sister?
Oh yeah.
You learned more there?
Oh yeah. I learned more about music. I knew enough about drugs already, but they taught me about good music right there. Yeah. So I'm, you know, senior, and I'm sitting with my guidance counselor, and it's like 2 months till school's done. She's like, what are you doing after school? And I'm like, what? I was like, where's my buddy going to school? My buddy Nick. She's like, he's going to Paul Smith's to play basketball. And I was like, oh, I'll just go there. And I had no plan, no design, no direction. So I go to this school, Paul Smith's, which is in the Adirondacks, and I took business there, and it was like a woodsman forestry school. There was like 10 people in the business programs.
So you went up there to study business. Mm-hmm. Where is the college?
It's in Saranac Lake, like Lake Placid area.
But before we started our interview, you said you love the Saratoga Capital District area.
Yeah.
That's part of that?
It's part of it, yeah. It's the Adirondacks. It's away from society, I guess. I think at that point, that's what it was. I was like, I just want to be left alone, and really I just wanted to do drugs and not have to show up for life, you know.
Right.
That helped out there.
You're a woods guy, so you get up to Lake Saranac College, you're partying. Are you passing your courses? Because you're accelerating, I assume, some of your drug and alcohol use.
Yeah, that's the only year I went to school. Like, I tried going to school a couple other times, but that year I did good, which is like a 2.5, which to me was incredible.
Better than 2.4?
Better than 2.4. That's how you look at it, and I agree.
That's what my bowling coach used to say. 7 is better than 6.
Yeah, I love that. It's a 2-degree shift.
Right.
At that time, it was morphine, it was coke, it was mushrooms, it was acid, it was a lot of beer. Alcohol was always with me. The opiates kind of took over at one point.
So you go to college for 1 year. What happens at the end of the first year of school?
So I'm dating a girl who's a year younger than me. She doesn't want to live out there. So I moved to 𝗣𝗏𝘁𝗃 with her. That's where I learned about resentment, because I was like, man, I loved it up there. I was doing fine. 2.5 was amazing. So I moved to 𝗣𝗏𝘃 with her, try to go to this community college, and I don't show up for anything. And when I share my story, it's like I got sober at 29 and I stopped having fun at 19 years old. And that's right around the time I moved to Ithaca, and it just became just dark, and it was just pure drug addiction.
Went to community college in Ithaca after 1 year.
I was enrolled at a community college. I did not go to it. And when I say my drug use ramped up at that time, me trying to escape reality even more, I'll say, which led to more drugs and more like, because obviously I wasn't doing the right thing. You know, I wasn't going to school. I wasn't on a good path. And that led to me wanting to escape the reality of that. I hide from that and who I was from like 19 to 29. It was a blur. I know I moved back home to Adams, New York.
Listen, you can't move on Crosstalk. You can't move from 19 to 29 that quickly. It's not possible.
You're gonna get it out of me? Let's go. I'm ready. I've been trying to figure it out for the last 5 years.
We got to get Mom on this.
That's what I've been.
She can tell you what happened.
I've been saying this for so. I wish that my family could, when I speak at fellowship meetings.
Just say, pause. Hold on. I'm gonna give you my mother.
I'm gonna put. Yeah, it would be a great share if all your family could tell you what was happening. Because I'm probably telling it wrong anyway. So.
Right. Well, our audience has no idea what happened either, so, just make it up.
It's got to be the truth.
From 1920 to 29, you're using accelerates, and you're just kind of on a run.
Okay, so I'm living in Adams, 20 to 21, doing nothing, dead-end jobs, washing dishes, losing those jobs, smoking weed, drinking coke. One close friend back, at that time died. That ramped the drug use up even more, and it also, at that time, helped me co-sign it. People were like, "Oh, I understand. This is why he's doing that."
Your friend, first name?
David.
David died from an overdose?
No, it was a car accident.
Did it have to do with drugs and alcohol?
I don't know.
Okay.
Yeah. Touchy one.
Sorry.
I was a drug addict and drunk from 12 years old. Like, that wasn't why. The divorce wasn't why. It was like a lot of my friends had that experience, and they didn't, turn into a heroin addict.
But for me, when I was using, everything that happened, most of it happened, wasn't great, and I could use that to give me a reason to keep going.
100%. Yeah.
So David dies, and during this period of time, it's a blackout period, I guess.
Yep.
That's what I'd call it.
Yeah, I think it was PTSD, it was trauma, it was alcohol, it was drugs. From 20 to 22, I moved to Glens Falls, New York, which is near Saratoga. Again, I tried to become a dog walker out there. That's a whole other story.
So what are the qualifications to become a dog walker?
My sister had a friend who needed her dog walked.
You were able to walk.
And she said, my brother is doing absolutely nothing. Maybe he could walk this dog. And then I said, Allison, you got any other friends that that need their dogs? I had 2 clients. I bought me some beer.
And at certain times during the day, you were able to walk.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right. Sounds perfect.
Yeah, that's the requirements right there.
How old are you at this point?
21 or 22, again, doing nothing, same old shit. My dad, down the line, he learns when he goes to visit me at treatment for the first and only time. He's an enabler.
What age?
First and only was 29 when that part of the story ended.
So at 21, you're with your sister, Glens Falls, dog walking.
Yep.
Between then and 29, not much changes. You're not walking dogs for 8 years.
No. Well, I'm just saying that I was funding all of this behavior. My dad had a credit card, so I was using. You can't live the way I was living and do the drugs that I was doing with a dog. 2 clients for dogs, So I didn't have a work ethic. So basically, I'm just saying I had a credit card that I could.
Got it. So during this period, Dad, he did what he thought was right.
What he thought, exactly.
Yeah, he loves you and wanted to do the best he could for you. So at 29, you said you went into treatment. You remember what led to the point that you decided that was at a bottom?
I mean, I hit 100 bottoms along the way, when I think back about it, because, eventually I drove out to California, which I was talking about earlier. At 22, I lived in Napa. Trying to become a winemaker. I ended up drinking vodka and grape juice, every day, so
I'm sorry, I don't know if anybody told you this, but being a winemaker, there's no requirement to drink vodka and grape juice when you're a winemaker.
I wish I knew. I wish I knew that. Things could have been way different.
You could have called me and I would have told you, not a requirement.
That's the beautiful thing. I wasn't calling anybody for advice. I was running the show, you know? I basically went into like alcoholic insanity out there. I was living in an apartment by myself. Worked at a champagne vineyard for like 2 weeks, a month or something, and then for literally 10 months was just drinking in my apartment. And my dad said, maybe you should come home. Maybe you could come run this golf course. So I came home from California after just being a complete mess, get a DWI a couple months after moving home. So that was one of my first bottoms, where I was like, all right, I got a problem. This is a problem. It's like an aggravated DWI, drug possession in Saratoga Springs. Talk about comeback stories, because I, ended up living there sober. But all these times to get to that point of 29, I got married at one point, 26 years old.
So we do know some things about that 10-year period.
Yes. Divorced 8 months later. But that's the story. It's just like the making it look like I got, that I'm gonna figure it out. I was always the guy that was gonna figure it out. So much potential, and it got dark. After the divorce, this other person came back in my life who happened to be a heroin addict. And I had daydreamed about being a heroin addict since I was 21 years old, which is insane to think about. I thought it was like this romantic, and it's not romantic, I found out. So, DWI 23, I learned I have a drinking problem, so I'll try out these opiates that I love. That kind of calms me down. I don't get in trouble when I'm on those. So it turned, from 23 after the DWI, I became a daily pill user. Percocet, Oxy, the whole thing. Opiates from 23 till 29, every day. 30 pills a day, stealing, the whole thing.
How did you get 30 pills a day?
You figure it out. A lot of stealing, a lot of...
None of it was not a pharmacy, it was streets?
Yeah, or people that had the pills that weren't, that actually were prescribed them, that didn't want them. That's really when the opiates ramped up and it became an everyday thing, at 23 years old till 29. So 6 years of like severe opiate addiction. I had no idea that recovery was a thing. No idea, because I lived that way for so long. Didn't know there was another way to do this, and always to go back to like, it was alcohol, it was weed that treated my desire to escape. Opiates is what really, was the final, like, that's what I wanted. It just took me right out of reality,
Right.
So 27 is when this girl, I meet this person who introduces me to heroin finally. I've been asking, since I was 21 to try to, get me connected to heroin. For whatever reason, I couldn't find it. And this person said, I've seen the way you do drugs, I am not letting you do heroin. And finally, I got introduced to it at 27. I was able to put together, 15, 16 years of drug addiction without going to the place that took me. So that was a very quick downfall. I was living in Rochester. My dad lives in Rochester. I lived with my grandpa back in Adams before I, went to live with my dad in Rochester. And he was at this place that I used to live, cleaning my room. And he found a needle. And I had a therapy appointment the next day after he found this needle. He's like, I'm gonna take you to your therapy appointment. I just found this new therapist, because my dad was like, I gotta figure out what's wrong with this kid. We're there early, and I could feel this energy. I could feel that he knew something. And we're parked, and he says, what's going on? He's like, I just checked my bank account, and you stole a lot of money from me. You stole from your mother, you stole from your grandpa, and I found this. He had a needle in his hand. And he said, I think it's Percocet. I just looked at him and I said, I'm a heroin addict. And I have been for a long time. I'm like choked up thinking about it, because I never got honest in my whole life, And that moment just kind of sat there, and he said, he's a very practical man. He said, well, you can't be on heroin. And like him and I laughed at that. He said, so what do we do? I said, well, I get sick when I don't have it, so I need to get into a detox. And we started Googling places, we had no idea.
Together.
Together.
This is the first, I'm around this a long time. I have never heard of an intervention like this. This is beautiful.
Yeah. It took a long time. It took 17 years.
Well, yeah, I mean, it wasn't beautiful for everything that came up before this, but that's a really nice way to be doing it. First, you're kind of laughing
Yeah.
that you can't do it. Ain't nothing funny about it, but it is really funny that you're laughing about it.
Yeah.
And that you're all Googling to figure out about detoxes. You must really have a great relationship with your dad.
Especially now. Like the last 5 years, unbelievable.
That's great.
It was a moment. It was, yeah, because I had never been honest, and it just felt so good to be like that. When I said that, it was the greatest thing because I had been lying for so long, Yeah, and you're right. It was my first surrender, and like we did it together. And so I say, yes, I'm a heroin addict. We Google. We have no idea what the hell to do. So I find this place. It's like a homeless shelter, basically, because I had certain insurance. So I went to this place, and he drops me off. We go in there. I talked to the intake person. They're like, "Oh yeah, you definitely need detox," because I was doing 50 bags a day. I was bad. I was 260 pounds, 270 pounds. Wow. I was a very big heroin addict. So I go in and do the intake, and then my dad says, "All right, I'm going to drive back, and I'll get you your clothes. You're going to stay here." So he drives 30 minutes to his house, and in that time, they take me to the waiting room, and there's these people, very intoxicated and saying a lot of crazy shit, and I'm waiting, for my dad, and I'm starting to get the itch, and I text my drug dealer, and I told him to meet me right near where I was. So my dad's driving, I step out, meet this guy, and apparently I'm acting funny because he accuses me of being a cop. He says, I got kids. He made me lift my shirt up because I was getting drugs from him. I was trying to be quick to get back to detox. And so I get the drugs, I do them. My drug dealer says, "I don't believe you." I say, "I'm going into detox. That's why I'm acting this way." And he's like, "Show me." So he drives me to detox. My dad's driving in from getting my clothes at the same time. We park, my dad's parked. I walk past my dad. He's on his phone looking down. And when he walks in, I'm sitting in the waiting room where he left me. And it's the obsession. So I stay at that detox 2 days. I meet this guy named Dean who says he has access to really good heroin. And he says, "We can leave." And I said, "I have $1,200, the last $1,200 that I had." So we leave. At this point, I told my family I'm a heroin addict. They're terrified. That's a huge deal. They had no idea. And then I flee this detox and go on a 5-day run. And at that point, my family got together and they found a really good treatment center that I went to. And I called my dad after 5 days of being in shady hotels and doing crazy, nearly life-ending shit. And I say, I'm ready. And he says, "I'll be there in the morning." Came and picked me up. That was September 11th, 2018, which is my sober date.
So that's the date you enter treatment.
Yep.
And you go there for how many days?
31 days.
What'd you learn there?
I learned about the 12 steps. I learned about community. I learned about connection, honesty, that feels really good to be honest. Because I've been lying for so long that when I finally found somebody that was like, "No, I've done that. I've been there." It was like this, I'd never been 30 days sober in my life.
Did the 29-year-old Blake find the answers that the 12-year-old Blake was looking for?
Yes. Not immediately, but it was a gradual process of my first year of recovery. I was still, there's a lot of fear and there's a lot of, confusion and just what happened? How did I get here? But I asked this guy who I became really close with, my friend Marshall. I said, what is this? What is this life? I was still asking the questions, but it wasn't ruling me. And he goes, "That's none of your fucking business." And it was just just be of service, help someone else. You're here to help the next person and to find peace. And so I was starting to find these answers of at least my questions.
The chances of us even being here are millions to one just to be here. What's it all about type of thing.
Yeah.
It's that was a great answer that he gave you.
Yeah.
Because who the hell knows?
Yeah.
But we're here right now, however we are. And it's our job to do the best we can with what we've been given.
Yeah.
And that was a really good answer that he gave.
I loved it. It shut me up. I need that direct, So I'm in treatment. I'm 29 years old, been using for 17 years. So they say this 31 days is great. You're very willing, but you're gonna need a little bit more help. So I go to sober living at this place in 𝗥𝘁𝗲. When I'm in treatment, this guy Zach, who's my mentor, you know, so he comes to the treatment center to speak, and I just relate to what he's saying, and I'm like, that whatever that is, I want that, you know, that attraction, not promotion. You know, I took a chance and went and visited this transitional living place, and I go to.
So that's in Yorktown Heights.
Yorktown Heights, Release Recovery.
Release Recovery.
Yeah.
Little plug for Release Recovery.
Release Recovery. That's how I got here. You know.
So you go from treatment to release.
Yep.
Sober living, and you stay there for
6 months.
Wow.
I said on the phone I'll give it a month, and then I would have stayed forever if I could, but I got offered a job there. I had 7 months sober and didn't have a ton of options. Again, I had zero money. I could have figured it out, but like that's what I wanted to do.
Why?
In that time, I was working at a clothing store part-time, you know, and I kept telling my sponsor, like, what am I gonna do? I'm 29, how am I gonna make money? How am I gonna live? And he's like, just keep talking about it, keep sharing about it, you know, and a couple weeks later I got offered that, you know, job, and then it became a passion. What happened to me over the 6 months of living there, by participating in what that program was doing, I had this tremendous change in myself, and I think I was bought in of like, this works if you do this, and I was like very excited to help other people do that. Through vulnerability and honesty and just like cutting the bullshit of like, oh, it's got to be this. No, like, let's get real. Like, how are you doing? Like, what's going on? Like, yes, it became a passion. I love to pass it on.
We recovering addicts are pretty interesting people, and I think one of the reasons why we connect with each other so much is because we're able to kind of just get down to what exactly is going on in our lives, not, you know, trying to get you to do anything, just kind of, you know, be there for one another.
Exactly. I want to continue to build a connection to a higher power, and like, that's not a bullshit answer. Like, I want to feel at peace. I want to be able to help more people. I want to just like be comfortable in my skin. Those are the things that I'm really thinking about. Deepen a connection to healing. I'm 5 years sober. I used for 17 years. Like, I got a long way to go to like undo a lot of that stuff. So like, I got a lot of work to do, and I just want to be, you know, there for my family. I want to build more relationships, grow professionally, and love. I just want more love. You know, that's it.
What do you do for fun?
So I go see music. I try to get outdoors. I try to play basketball, hang out with my friends. I like to chill as well. Like music, I like movies, and chilling.
Our intro and outro is music by a guy named Gregory Page. The song is Green Lights and Blue Skies. And before you leave this place, I want you to hear the song Green Lights and Blue Skies. Gregory's become a friend of mine.
Yeah.
Sergio and I went out to San Diego on Greg's birthday. Greg and another one of their group members played the song Green Lights and Blue Skies, and Greg asked me to introduce the song. Wow. Because he knows how much I love the song.
Talk about doing cool shit.
Right, right. So I'm there introducing the song. I had prepared something, and I couldn't get it on my phone. I didn't have the paper or whatever, so I just start talking. And the first thing I say is, "My name's Corey. I'm an alcoholic, but I think I'm in the wrong room." Because, you know, usually I'm talking in a meeting.
Yeah. Bob Dylan's my guy.
He's the guy?
Yeah.
So, Blake, thank you so much for being here. This is what it's about. It's about, you know, being able to help other people to see whether or not our stories can impact other people, to let people know that they're okay. It can be done. There's no reason why, if I did it and you did it, you can't do it.
Exactly. Thank you.
Thanks for being here.
All right, I'll get out.
Thank you so much. You're welcome.
That was beautiful. Thank you.
It's great.
Thank you.